What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So we've talked quite a bit about what systems could be going into Nintendo Switch Online in the future, with one obvious one just floating around out there. Well, now it seems like we may have some movement behind the scenes, as something's been noticed that's even linking new hardware to the situation, but we'll go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about a pretty major breakthrough for the PlayStation 4 that now has something like Bloodborne even booting up on PC, and then we'll go over Final Fantasy XIV that could be popping up in a new place that would actually take Square Enix's ultra-popular MMORPG to the next level. So if you guys enjoy this video, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members to the channel do get Newswave early. If you'd like to learn more about that, click the join button down below this video. And we're going to start today with Nintendo Switch Online and the latest game trial that Nintendo is offering. We can see this posted up over on their official account, where they say Nintendo Switch Online members from July 8th at 10 a.m. Pacific to July 14th at 11:59 p.m. Pacific, you can download and try the Mario Plus Rabbid Sparks of Hope game at no additional cost. To go a little further, if you do really enjoy the game, you can also take advantage of a discount of 67% off of the Gold Edition for Sparks of Hope. That will end July 14th at midnight. The game itself is good. The only issue is people passed on it initially, it seemed anyway, and it fell short of Ubisoft's initial expectations because people know that Ubisoft puts these games on sale. In fact, this one went down to like $20 at one point during, I think, the holidays. Like months later, it was $20. I mean, 67% off is a good discount on the Gold Edition, but even that fails to come close to a $20 price point for the regular edition outright physically even. But still, if you've been curious about this game, I do recommend downloading it. If nothing else, it's a very visually impressive looking game, and if you have a Switch OLED, playing it in handheld mode does look really, really good. Also, we did have an update for F-Zero 99 that people were very excited about, and in fact, people mentioned in like the comments section that it brought a whole wave of new people back to the game and also maybe trying it out for the first time. But we can see this cataloged over on Nintendo Life, and we'll scroll through some of the patch notes here. But this is version 1.4.0. It has a new festival event. This is including festival-themed versions, a separate leaderboard event, AI-controlled racers known as Star Rivals, gameplay adjustments, and more according to Nintendo. They also have emotes, so if you hold down L or R and then press one of the main buttons before a race begins, you'll be able to share an emote with your competitors. I'm sure that's probably getting spammed all over the place. Fortunately with Nintendo, it's probably more family-friendly emotes, we'll say. But there is quite a bit here for this game, and some were saying it feels like Nintendo's went in and revamped the whole thing. But F-Zero 99 is a fun idea. I don't know if it's like the visuals that were putting some people off because it is leveraging the Super Nintendo graphics for that game. I know it's not like the Super Nintendo ROM necessarily or anything, but it is using that sort of art style and visual direction. I think a lot of people were hoping for the F-Zero GX, the GameCube version, but who knows, maybe we'll just get GameCube games in general on the Switch. But for this, and sort of its unique style when it comes to the multiplayer, F-Zero 99, a really cool update here, especially for people who left for a while. Good time to jump back in. Oh, and we did get a release date for the Western release of Ys 10 Nordics. There was a full trailer you can see here for it. Of course, this is coming to Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, and PC on October 25th. So good news, they are getting it in the 2024 by about 2 months or so. I think people were wondering, are they actually going to get it in 2024? They are. And Ys 10, look, I liked Ys 8 quite a bit, actually. That was a good one. Ys 9 was all right. People did seem to really like it. There were some weird performance issues on the Switch for that one, but Ys 10 Nordics, from what they've shown, we were like sailing around in the ocean and stuff. It looks really, really cool. Of course, still have Adel there playing as. So I'm interested in this one to pick it up when it does come out. Of course, get it physically. I just have to look over the different versions of the game and decide where exactly I want to pick it up. Because again, the performance issues in 9 on the Switch were like, I don't know, that kind of threw me off at certain points in the game where there are a bunch of enemies around you. In this case, though, I'll take a look and see which one I'm picking up, but definitely going to be checking out Ys 10 Nordics when it comes out in October. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Nintendo Switch Online and the big elephant in the room for the next system that we feel like would be in line. Obviously, we've had the Nintendo 64 as the most recent one alongside of Game Boy Advance for that expansion pack tier. So people are now looking to the following generation, that being either GameCube or DS. GameCube seems a bit more feasible with how unique the DS is, of course, with the dual screen approach. But with something like the GameCube, you feel like it would work out, especially since we've already had GameCube games get remastered or remade for the platform. Although I guess that could also be somewhat of a deterrent for Nintendo to do it, since they are technically reselling these games even at full price in some cases. But nonetheless, there seems to be something maybe happening behind the scenes. Will it come to market? Well, we'll circle back around to that one. We can see this though posted up. This is over on Gaming Leaks and Rumors over on Reddit. They say a user on Famaboards, Luigi Blood, posted some customs shipping data. In this was discovered to be possible references to a GameCube controller with similar code names and parts to previous NSO controllers. Another user, LIC, backed this up, but both users still had reservations about what this means. I do want to point out, while over on Famaboards, they hide these things with like hidden messages that you're not supposed to share online, or so I don't know, they got something going on over there. It makes it very difficult to cite the exact words that were used, but I will give Luigi Blood credit. They actually responded in the comment thread here on Reddit, saying, I have not said that GameCube NSO controller out of nowhere on this though. The name of the PCBs I found very much could imply that, but for the time being, as of May 2024, we can only see up to 2 months ago. It's in the prototyping stage. While having definitely GameCube parts showing, I can be 100% certain about. The question is whether they are related to PCBs I found. All this showed up for May 2024 and not anywhere before, so we're still ways off for now. I'm waiting for next month so we can possibly have further ideas on what's going on. So, first off, impressive stuff to be tracking customs and shipping information, and they would catalog what exactly is going back and forth in customs and shipping, obviously. So, if you can kind of match those up, that's one of the ways that people were able to find the different parts for Nintendo's successor to the Switch, was going through customs and seeing different shipping orders. In this case, though, a PCB that, when lined up with like the controller for the NES, NSO offering where they did a controller there, Super Nintendo, Genesis, N64, you can kind of see the codes that they're using and it falling in line for what we assume would be a GameCube controller, and you feel like they would prototype a GameCube controller because they're planning to do something when it comes to GameCube games in Nintendo Switch Online. There are a lot of questions around that, since the sizes for GameCube games are quite a bit more than any of the other titles right now that are on NSO, and that would make it maybe so the downloads are a bit longer, but realistically, many GameCube games are anywhere from 300 to maybe 800 megabytes, and there's compression and stuff Nintendo can do, and that's really not a big download in today's day. Think about what you have to do when you want to get an update for a game on the PlayStation 5 or the Xbox, and it ends up being 20 some odd gigabytes for an update on a game. That could potentially be, 25 GameCube games or something. And if we get to the point where the library is that sizable, well, you should probably get an SD card either way. To me, though, the most intriguing part about all of this is the potential that Nintendo could be making a new Wavebird controller. That would be phenomenal. It's an outstanding controller, one of the best controllers I think ever made, especially when it was released, that time period where wireless controllers are still kind of weird. Even first-party ones felt like they were off-brand from Mad Catz or Logitech or something, whereas Nintendo shows up with a Wavebird and it felt like a good quality first-party controller that was incredibly responsive. Nintendo's already done a new GameCube controller that they mostly marketed for Smash, although some third-party companies did utilize it in their games. We even had like racing games use the analog triggers so that you would get the full pedal press for a throttle. So I think it would be awesome to see a Wavebird controller come out, but this doesn't guarantee anything, as is mentioned here for prototyping. They could just be playing around with it in the background, but the fact that they are does make me think they're at least considering the idea of GameCube going into NSO, and maybe that would be a good selling point for their next system with Nintendo Switch Online when they inevitably raise the price for it, because I do believe that's happening. I can't see any way it doesn't, especially if GameCube games go in. What kind of tier would they introduce, and would there be something alongside of GameCube games? That's something we have to wait and see there. But here's hoping. Cross my fingers. Come on, Nintendo. New Wavebird controller, maybe for 2025. I'd be there day one. Next up, let's talk about Final Fantasy XIV, with the potential to pop up, I think, in a place that would even take the game to a whole new level, which sounds weird because the game is already ultra popular. It came back from basically being discontinued and they had to rebuild the game and figure it out again, and then they re-released it. Now it's just an incredible experience for fans of MMORPGs. But it appears it could be heading to mobile phones, and we can see this is posted up. This is over on Xputer. Says they've learned that Final Fantasy XIV Mobile is currently in development. As per the site's sources, bringing the popular MMORPG to mobile devices is a joint project of Square Enix and Tencent. Not too surprising there. Tencent, of course, has very understanding seemingly of the mobile development side, so they would work in collaboration with Square Enix to launch Final Fantasy XIV Mobile, and I'm sure that'll be really big in places like China, for example, so to me that at least makes sense why Square Enix would go in that direction. But mobile phones, where they are now, I do wonder if they would have what's essentially a full-fledged version of Final Fantasy XIV on phones. I say that because I see Genshin Impact, incredibly popular game, like really, really popular, but it's also held up quite a bit by the mobile market. However, Final Fantasy XIV is a bit different. How do they approach sort of the monetization side of things with mobile phones? Because as we know, the audience is more receptive to outright free-to-play with a stupid amount of microtransactions. Like there's like, oh, $10 for a game. But then they spend hundreds of dollars on gacha games and pulls in a week even. So it seems weird, I know, and I do wonder if a subscription service like a Final Fantasy XIV would work out there. But I guess with 14, you can kind of play the game for free up to what, level 75 or something, and then sort of go from there and decide if you like the game. So maybe they'll play into it that way, or maybe they just keep it free and come up with some other monetization for the mobile side. I'm curious though, cross-save, cross-progression, can you go from your phone to your PC, to your PlayStation 5, to your Xbox? That'd be really cool if they could make all of that work, tie it together, because then legitimately, Final Fantasy XIV can just be always with you. As long as you have your phone, of course. Next up, let's talk about a pretty substantial breakthrough for PlayStation 4 and the emulation scene overall, as it does seem that we have a more legitimate PS4 emulator, one that seems more capable than ever before here, and we can see this was posted up over on their official account. This is from Shad PS4, saying something interesting is happening on Shad PS4. They say it's still highly work in progress, but they show Bloodborne at least booting up. Now, with emulation in general, a lot of times just getting a game to boot is a massive, massive accomplishment. Here, though, a PlayStation 4 emulator booting Bloodborne, which, look, if you want to market your emulator at all, you try to get Bloodborne to boot first and foremost, because that's obviously going to cause a massive stir online, and it did. This one post got over 1 million views so far, and it shows what's a very broken-looking Bloodborne booting up, but it's booting, and seemingly this project, Shad PS4, just recently launched version 0.1.0, so it's very new. It's like last week that posted. So I guess, yeah, if you look at it that way, for a week's worth of development, at least in the public setting, this is very, very good. And it sounds funny because you go, wow, PS4 games being emulated, but also PS4 is 11 years old at the end of this year, so you kind of feel like, okay, we are getting to a position where, yes, that system should be emulated, but it's gonna be a bit here, but the fact that Bloodborne is booting does give me a lot of hope for this sort of emulator to really figure it out and get most of the commercial games booting and then fully playable, and then you start talking about maybe enhancements that you can add on top of it, where you can get true 4K, 120 frames, and so on, provided, of course, you have a strong enough PC to do it. But definitely something to keep an eye on here with some of their progress and maybe other games they get booting. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about some heartbreaking information for Grand Theft Auto 5 fans, because the biggest thing people have called for with that game, really since it came out, was DLC of some kind, single-player DLC. Because, obviously, the multiplayer got a lot of attention. It makes sense. It made a ton of money. Well, it does appear that they did have DLC planned, and we've heard about this a few times, but we just keep getting more and more confirmation, even things that they had planned that got scrapped. We can see this, for example, posted up. This is over on VGC, who transcribed this, and this is Joseph Rubino, who was a senior camera artist and virtual cinematographer at Rockstar for 6 years. He's told the San and Play YouTube channel that he worked on the Trevor DLC before it was canceled. Says, quote, "What happened was, when GTA Online came out, it was so much of a cash cow, and people were loving it so much that it was hard to make an argument that a standalone DLC would out-compete that. I think looking back now, I would say that you could probably do both, but that was a business decision that they made." And you know what this made me think about? It did make me think a bit about when Naughty Dog put that message out. It was like, look, we're either going to be a single-player studio or we're going to be a multiplayer-only studio and hold up this one live service game. And you kind of see it here with Rockstar at times. Like, the fact that GTA 5 couldn't get DLC because they were so dead set on continuing to support and build out GTA Online is an absolute shame. Because, I mean, Trevor DLC, that would have been cool to just expand more on the story and do different things. They did it with GTA 4, I'd say fairly successfully. So the fact that they were not able to do that with GTA 5 because it was all about shark cards and GTA Online, it does make me a bit hesitant as to what they're going to do with GTA 6. I do feel like, though, if you had released DLC for it, especially now, with how many people just own GTA 5, at least based on the sales numbers, you feel like you would sell tons and tons of copies of that DLC, but I guess in their mind, they were making a ton of money just on shark cards. They gotta keep developing, gotta keep coming up with reasons for you to buy those shark cards, keep putting money into GTA Online. But hey, GTA 5, incredibly successful. It's hard to say, well, they could have done this instead because look how much money they've been making with GTA 5. A game that came out a decade plus ago at this point. It's still rolling along. So we'll see what happens with GTA 6. But I guess at this point, we should just hope that the base game of GTA 6 is incredibly fleshed out and there's a ton of stuff to do, because at the end of the day, that might be all we get from it, at least from this single player side. And before we go to the comments of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, do you collect figures or statues? 61% say no. Hey, 39% say yes. And I looked through the comments. I would include Amiibo, by the way. So if you've been buying Amiibo and stacking them up on the shelf, whether it's in the packaging or taking them out and putting them on their shelf just outright, yeah, that would count as a yes. But for me, you know, I will say if it's more impulse buy territory, like $30 or less, I might look at it. But when I look at the first 4 figure stuff and it's hundreds of dollars, I do stop and wonder, okay, is this really worth buying for $600? I mean, it's nice for decoration. You can put it up somewhere, especially if you're a major fan of, like, for example, Majora's Mask. They did a whole mask, and that looked really, really good. And if I was a huge, huge fan of Majora's Mask, that's my favorite game of all time, then yeah, I understand why people would buy that. But I also see some people collect almost every single first 4 figures thing that releases, and that just seems wild to me to have that stacked up all over your room. But hey, people get a kick out of collectibles and statues. But for me, if it's like a $10 little figure like Sony did, where they were releasing like the Jack and they did one for Journey, those I think are more up my alley when it's like $12 as opposed to $600. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Punish saying, it would be great if Nintendo lets us buy these subscription games. Feels like a waste to just have them hiding behind a subscription. I've seen people wonder if Nintendo would consider selling these things a la carte along with subscriptions. And I mean, Sony does that with their PlayStation Plus premium stuff, where Sly Cooper comes out. You can buy it for $15, or you can just subscribe to premium and it's just there for you. So I don't really know why you wouldn't also just let people buy them, and because you're gonna get money then too, especially for the basic tier. It's like $20 a year, right? Well, if a Super Nintendo game comes out and it's $5, and maybe a person buys 5 of those throughout the year, technically you've made more money off them and they still don't have access to the online service. They might have to subscribe to that as well down the road if a new multiplayer game comes out that they want to play. To me, maybe going to the next generation, they'll consider that. I think right now they're obviously locked in, and they're not going to necessarily flip a switch that will give you the ability to purchase, because let's face it, it's Nintendo with online, and the whole thing might just explode. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today, where there's the potential for GameCube games to go into NSO, and maybe even a new Wavebird controller coming out. Would you pick one of those up if it released? And then also, what about Final Fantasy XIV going to mobile phones? Would you be playing it there? And the idea of PlayStation 4 emulators maybe taking over a bit more here. Would you be someone booting up Bloodborne on your PC? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.